Welcome to our weekly dose of global development recommendations. Let's get into it. In honor of Workers' Day, which was yesterday, we spotlight a paper that analyzes the implications of the revised standards on employment in Sub-Saharan Africa, drawing on surveys in the agricultural sector from Ghana and Malawi, and household surveys from Malawi and Nigeria. Work Redefined narrows down the scope of what constitutes labor practices to those associated with pay or profit. In other words, the main intended use of the output of one's practices qualifies their activities as employment or otherwise. It concludes that the revised employment standards have significant implications for characterization of employment in Africa, notably in rural areas. It asserts that the ongoing process of operationalizing the 19th International Conference of Labor Statisticians Standards has significant implications for labor statistics in developing countries, and especially in Sub-Saharan Africa, where a large share of the population produces goods for family use. The next publication discusses the role of national implementation committees in implementing the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. It explains that member states are required to set up national implementation committees to facilitate the implementation of the agreement and highlights the paramount role of the AFCFTA Secretariat in supporting these activities. The publication goes on to explore various aspects related to the national implementation committees, including their composition, mandate, and scope. Overall, this publication provides valuable insights into how countries can effectively establish and utilize national implementation committees to facilitate the implementation of the AFCFTA agreement. Xenophobia continues to be a recurring issue in South Africa, and according to this paper by the Institute for Security Studies Africa, socioeconomic pressures are amongst the root causes of this, and this hinders efforts to build social cohesion between South African locals and foreign nationals. In a study carried out in two townships in Johannesburg and Pretoria, namely Atteridgeville and Diepsloot, to establish the cause of tension between the respective groups. A key finding from the research states that unemployment, competition for scarce resources, crime, drugs, and poor service delivery were key impediments to harmonious coexistence between locals and foreign migrants. One of the recommendations made is the need to enforce migration rules and hold private sector employers accountable when they employ illegal immigrants and pay wages below the stipulated minimum wage, irrespective of employees' nationality. At the intersection of trade and integration lies what is referred to as deep trade agreements, which cover elements including international flows of investment and labor and the protection of intellectual property rights and the environment. This report argues that deep trade agreements matter for economic development, and each chapter, presented by an expert in their respective field, explores subject matters including preferential tariffs, export restrictions, competition policy, intellectual property rights, investments, and movement of capital. If you would like a better understanding of international economic law and policy, then set aside time for this handbook. Land is a contentious issue in Africa due to historic economic imbalances on land governance. This report was developed to facilitate sufficient human, financial, and technical capacities to support land policy development and implementation. It details guidelines for the development of curricula on land governance in Africa, and this covers land governance in rural areas, conflict and land governance, land information management systems. These guidelines are available for use by all universities and institutions of higher learning in Africa, as well as other actors in the land governance industry. Enjoy the rest of your week. Goodbye.